Hello, good afternoon. This is Time with PIAC. Today we focus on the latest report of the committee, that is the 2024 semi-annual report on the management and use of petroleum revenues in Ghana. This report covers the period January to June 2024, and it provides information on petroleum production, revenue accrued, and how these monies were used alongside other critical issues when it comes to petroleum revenue management. Stay with us for a conversation on the highlights of this report. Remember, this is an interactive session, so you can send in your questions and comments as the discussion progresses, and we'll respond to them. I am Jessica A. Champon. Joining me is the coordinator of PIAC, Isaac Dramna Esquire, to help us unpack this report and to provide some insights as well. Hello, Mr. Dramna. Good afternoon. And welcome to Time with PIAC.
Good afternoon, Jessica, and good afternoon to our cherished viewers.
Before we go into the details of the report, I would want you to educate our viewers on what exactly PIAC is and what actually gives you that mandate to publish these reports, one of which we are going to discuss this afternoon.
Thank you. So the Public Interest and Accountability Committee is a citizen-based, citizen-led committee established by Section 51 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to promote and ensure transparency and accountability in the use and management of Ghana's petroleum revenues. Section 52 mandates the committee to monitor and ensure compliance with provisions of the Act, to create a platform for citizens to debate whether the spending prospects are in line with development priorities, and then 3, to provide independent assessments of the management and use of the revenues, and make these assessments or a report on the mandate available to the executive and to the legislature or to parliament. With regards to its reporting mandate, Section 56 of the PRMA, Act 815, mandates the committee to publish 2 reports every year. A semi-annual report, which you referred to, covering the period January to June, which report is to be published by the 15th of March every year. And then a full year report, the annual report, to be published by the 15th of March in the ensuing year. So that's the reporting mandate, and the committee is required to publish this report in at least 2 national dailies and also on its website, and then engage the people of Ghana on the content of the report after it has been published. So that is the reporting mandate of the committee.
We will delve into the details of this report later, but I just want you to walk us through the processes that PIAC goes through before it comes up with these reports.
All right. So basically, the committee makes a request to institutions of state and also private entities, private companies, and that play one role or another in the upstream petroleum management space, whether production, lifting, revenue utilization, investments management, requests for data from them. On the state side, we have such institutions as the Bank of Ghana, the Ministry of Finance, Ghana Revenue Authority, Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Ghana National Gas Limited Company, and others. On the private side, we have such companies as Talo Ghana Limited, Cosmos, ENI, and other upstream petroleum operators. So they, upon receipt of the data, the raw data, the committee analyzes the data and through its analysis raises key issues for the attention of these reporting institutions or stakeholders, key stakeholders. Usually So after the first level of analysis, the committee organizes what it calls the validation session. The validation session is intended to clarify any uncertainties in some of the issues, to eliminate any factual inaccuracies that it may have identified, because the committee triangulates the data it receives. Sometimes they receive the same data from different entities to be able to juxtapose them and conclude that the information provided by the different entities are the same and they say the same thing. So the validation session enables the committee and its stakeholders to come to the same point in terms of the information provided and some of the deductions the committee has made out of it. Then after that, I will say that the validation is an open session. It invites the stakeholders to it. Then each of them responds to the issues that relate to them. After that, the entities provide written responses to the issues that they have responded to in the open. And then the committee incorporates the written responses received into the report to get the next level of report. And based on that next level of report, it then arrives at the observations, the findings, and then it proffers recommendations to address some of the issues it has identified in the findings and observations. Where there's need to comment, the committee comments, and where there's need to raise actions to be taken to correct certain anomalies, then the committee will also recommend. Yeah, so that is it with the process. So when the report is fully ready, then of course it publishes the reports as I have explained.
We realize that there are specific provisions in the law with regards to when PIAC is supposed to publish these reports. You mentioned earlier 15th March, 15th September. So this particular report, that's the 2024 semi-annual report, was supposed to have been published by 15th September. We realized that it came later in the year, I think November, if I'm not mistaken. What actually led to this delay, and is the committee in breach of the law?
On the face of it, yes, the committee is in breach of the law. As I said, 56(1) requires the committee to publish the report as it should. Semi-annual report by 15th September, annual report 15th March. If you go beyond it and publish on the 16th, 17th of September, you have not met the provisions of the Act. As I explained earlier, the committee relies on data provided by these entities of state and private entities. So the committee on its own cannot write a report. It does not generate the data. So sometimes the committee is in a dilemma. You have requested for data, you have not received the data. Do you publish a report that doesn't present the full picture to citizens and tell them that entity A, B, C, and D failed to provide data, or you wait, you fall foul of the law, but then you are able to provide the full picture of what happened in the period to your viewers? So sometimes the committee is in a dilemma. Some are of the view that publish the report you have as at the statutory date, even if it's incomplete, and let citizens know that entity A, B, C, and D are the ones who have failed to provide you with data. Others think that no, you are looking at more at substance over form, not just meeting a statutory requirement to publish a report, but you are also seeking to inform which information is to lead to actions. So it's better to wait a few days or weeks and provide a fuller picture, which is what has been happening. But we all need to be mindful of the provision in Regulation 25 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Regulations, LI 2381, that any request of PIAC to entities of state and private for data for purposes of the statutory report is to be provided by after not more than 15 days after the receipt of the request. So PIAC looks forward to its stakeholders complying with this provision of the regulation so that it will better position PIAC to be able to meet the statutory timeline.
26 reports so far. Has there ever been a time that PIAC met the statutory timeline?
Unfortunately, not yet. PIAC has never met any of the statutory timelines, and we will keep working hard until we are able to meet the statutory timeline.
If you are just joining us, this is Still Time with PIAC, and today we are looking at the 2024 semi-annual report of the committee, and my guest is Mr. Isaac Jamna, the coordinator of PIAC, who has just walked us through the processes that the committee goes through to publish its reports. At this point, we would like to delve into the report. So, Mr. Jamna, in terms of production, how did we fare as a country in the first half of 2024?
All right, thank you. So we understand that upstream petroleum production is from three fields as at now: the Jubilee field, the Cheneboa, Enyira, and Tome, which is shortened as 10 field, and then the Sankofa Jinyame, the SGN field. The total production for the period under consideration was 24,857,477 barrels of crude oil. So that was the total production for the period. Let me break it down and say the Jubilee field contributed 66% of the total production. The 10 field contributed 14%, and then the Sankofa Jinyame field contributed 20%. So the contributions of each of the three fields together made up the total production for the period under consideration.
So in terms of revenue, how much came to us?
All right, so maybe we should touch on gas a bit, but because you've asked the question on revenue, let me go to revenue. So total revenue for the period under consideration was $840 million, $765,265.80 So let me say it again: 840,765,265.80 So that's the total revenue for the period under consideration.
Would you want to give us a breakdown of how that revenue came by?
Okay, so in terms of the fields, the Jubilee field contributed $248.7 million of the 840. The 10 field contributed $76.5 million, and then the Sankofa Jinyame field contributed $149.1 million. In terms of what we call the revenue streams, what the sources of the revenue, the carried and participating interest contributed $385.17 or $385.2 million. The corporate income tax contributed $358.8 million. The royalty revenue stream contributed $89.1 million. The petroleum holding fund income contributed $7.1 million. Surface rental was $439,000, and then there was another income source that contributed $66,902. So that is the breakdown of the total of $840 million.
Before I ask what we use the $840 million to do, you wanted to touch on gas production. I know we are currently not getting any revenue from gas, so this 840 is strictly from crude oil production.
You're right.
Okay, so you can just walk us through the commercial raw gas production.
Okay, so for the period we are looking at total raw gas produced. Total raw gas produced was 139,866.92 standard cubic feet. The Sankofa Jinyame field, let me start from the Jubilee field. The Jubilee field contributed 42,581 standard cubic feet. The 10 field contributed 28,700 standard cubic feet. And then the Sankofa Jinyame field contributed 95 95,426 standard cubic feet. So altogether, total raw gas produced 139,866 standard cubic feet.
Okay, so we are moving on now. A little over 840 million US dollars came to us in the first half of the year. I'm sure the question on the minds of every citizen is, how did we use this revenue? So, Mr. Jamna, tell us how we use this revenue.
Yeah, so I believe that our viewers have been taken through the provisions guiding the allocation of the revenues in the past. But it doesn't hurt to go over for their sake and for the conversation we are having. The Petroleum Revenue Management Act provides that all petroleum revenues shall first be deposited into the Petroleum Holding Fund, which is a transitory fund at the Bank of Ghana here in Ghana for allocation and distribution. So the 840 plus million US dollars were all deposited into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Then the Act provides that not more than 55% of the carried and participating interest is to be given or distributed to the National Oil Company, Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. Parliament has approved a percentage of 30 currently. So GMPC received not more than 30%, exactly 30% of the carried and participating interest. So that is what GMPC received. So the 70% of the carried and participating interest remaining, plus all the other revenue sources together, now make a new 100%. And the PRA provides that not more than 70% of the new 100% is to be spent in the budget. And the remaining 30 of the new 100, 21% is to be distributed to the Ghana Stabilization Fund, and the remaining 9% to the Ghana Heritage Fund. So based on that, the budget received 205.6 million US dollars. That's the budget, the EBFA, the annual budget funding amount, portion of the petroleum revenue spent in the budget. Then the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation received 114.3 million US dollars based on the allocation principle I explained. The Ghana Stabilization Fund received 91.116, or let me say 91.2 million US dollars. And then the Ghana Heritage Fund, 39.07 million US dollars. So that is how total revenue of 450 million of the 840 million was distributed. The amount not distributed remains in the Petroleum Holding Fund to be distributed in the second half of the year. This is not against the provisions of the PRMA. There's nothing like a breach of the PRMA in this instance. Let me take the opportunity and also bring our viewers and our citizens up to speed from 2011, when Ghana started this journey of upstream petroleum revenue and its distribution. Thus far, petroleum revenue distributed up to 30th June 2024 amounts to 10.3 billion US dollars. 10.3 billion US dollars. And this is how it's been distributed. The total petroleum revenue spent in the budget amounts to 4.12 billion US dollars. 4.12 billion US dollars. Then the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, that is the National Oil Company, has received thus far 2.9 billion US dollars. 2.9 billion US dollars. The Ghana Stabilization Fund has received 2.27 billion US dollars. 2.27 billion US dollars. And then finally, the Ghana Heritage Fund has received 966 million US dollars. So that is the distribution of the cumulative figure of 10.2 billion US dollars.
We realize that there are four main distribution channels, for want of a better word. the ABFA, GMPC, Heritage Fund, Stabilization Fund. But I would want us to focus now on the ABFA. How exactly did we use the allocation that went into the ABFA for the first half of the year?
All right, thank you. So the Act provides that the utilization of the petroleum revenue to be spent in the budget shall be aligned with a medium-term framework that is in line with a long-term national development plan approved by Parliament. So that is the default position of the Act. And unfortunately for us as a nation, since 2011 that we have been utilizing petroleum revenue, we still do not have a long-term national development plan approved by Parliament to guide the utilization of the ABFA. And PIAC continues to call on all duty bearers, the executive, the legislature, and all others to play their respective roles so that Ghana will have a long-term national development plan for better utilization of the annual budget funding amount. But the Act also provides that in the absence of a long-term national development plan, the Act lists out what it calls priority areas, about 12 of them, and places a mandate on the Minister for Finance to select not more than 4 of them over a 3-year period for the approval of Parliament for the utilization of the petroleum revenue. So based on that, for the period 2023, 2024, and 2025, the Minister for Finance has selected and Parliament has approved the following for the utilization of petroleum revenues: agriculture, including fisheries; physical infrastructure and service delivery in education and health; roads, rail, and other critical infrastructure; and industrialization. So these are the areas for the utilization of the petroleum revenue. And to respond more directly to your question, the total petroleum revenue utilized in the budget for the first half of the year, because we are spending in the budget, it has to be in Ghana cedis. So when we convert what came into the budget, we have a total of 3 billion Ghana cedis, 3 billion Ghana cedis. Okay. Now, of the 3 billion Ghana cedis, agriculture, including fisheries, received 169 million Ghana cedis, 169 Ghana cedis, which represents 5.59% of the 3 billion. Physical infrastructure and service delivery in education and health received 732.5 million Ghana cedis, representing 24.17%. Then roads, rail, and other critical infrastructure received 2.1 billion Ghana cedis, 2.1 billion, representing 70.04%. And finally, the industrialization priority area received no petroleum revenue for the first half of the year. The industrialization priority area received 0 petroleum revenue. The Petroleum Revenue Management Amendment Act provides that the programs and activities of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, shall be charged on the petroleum revenue spent in the budget. So based on that provision, PIAC received an amount of 6 million Ghana cedis for the first 6 months of the year. So that is the breakdown of the 3 billion Ghana cedis that was spent in the first half of the year.
This is still Time with PIAC, and we are still looking at highlights of the 2024 semi-annual report on the management and use of petroleum revenues in Ghana. We see the questions and the comments coming in, and at the right time, we are going to read out some of them, and then we'll also respond to your questions. So kindly leave them in the comment section. Mr. Jamla, at this point, in fact, one of the comments said I should address you as a lawyer. So now I'm going to say, Lawyer Jamla, can you share some key findings and recommendations from the report with our viewers?
All right, thank you. So, as I said, the analysis of the committee would lead it to arrive at observations and findings. And then they would proffer recommendations to address the issues identified in the observations and findings. Maybe it will be good to touch on some of the observations and then the findings, and then we'll come to the recommendations as time will allow. The first observation the committee made in its work was that for the period we are looking at, January to June 2024, no petroleum agreement was signed between Ghana and any other entity for that matter. So no petroleum agreement was signed. In fact, the last petroleum agreement signed dates as far back as 2018. So that is the first observation the committee made. The second we would like to draw attention to was that drilling operations, especially in upstream, reduced significantly when you compare drilling operations in the first half of the year 2023. So here we are comparing the first 6 months of year 2024 and year 2023, and the committee observed that for year 2024 first 6 months, drilling operations reduced drastically. And it is principally because in the first half of the year 2023, work on the Jubilee South East project was ongoing, which is what led to the more drilling operations being carried out than in 2024 first half. Then the third, maybe I should go to the findings.
Yeah,
yes,
let's go to the
let me go to the findings. The first finding the committee made was that crude oil production for the first half of 2024, for the period we are considering, increased by 10.7% compared to the same period in 2023. So when you compare January to June 2024 with January to June 2023, for January to June 2024, there was an increase of 10.7% in crude oil production. Now, we need to underscore this point because for the past 4 years, Ghana has been recording a decline in crude oil production. And the committee, together with other stakeholders, has undertaken various interventions. But it is good to note that compared to first half 2023, we registered an increase. The committee will be able to definitively say that this decline has been reversed based on the full year report it received. So suffice it to say that we registered a 10.7% increase in the first half. Surface rental, one of the revenue streams, one of the source of revenue, operators failed to pay the state an amount of 1.2 million US dollars. 1.2 million US dollars of surface rentals remained outstanding. Then, as I mentioned earlier, the industrialization priority area received no petroleum revenue allocation. And this is significant because, the priority areas are 12. Government has selected 4 of them for the next 3 years. So if government has identified industrialization as a priority area, which is a good initiative, then the committee, and for that matter, Ghanaians, expect government to demonstrate the excellence of prioritization by allocating petroleum revenue to the industrialization priority area so that factories can be set up for job creation and for growth of the economy. So let me say that more of the findings are in the full report published on the website of the committee, and citizens can access the full report.
Before we go to the recommendations, which will be the last leg of the conversation, I would want us to respond to some of the questions that have come in so far. So there's a question which says that the team PIAC was in the Central region last week. I want to find out, after the monitoring, were they happy about what they witnessed at the project sites, especially Commander?
It's good, and I commend the citizen who has followed up, based on PIAC's interactions, and is following up and following us. To a large extent, the projects we visited, I think we visited 3 projects. One relating to the roads in the Commander Senior Technical High School. The culverts had been done, but the road itself had not been done. We also visited the National Flood Control Program, a project relating to that had been done. And then also some inner city, inner town roads in the Commander Township. I would say that there is room for improvement with regards to the utilization of petroleum revenue in the KEEA municipality. The projects had not been completed. The school project I'm talking about, the roads in the school, and it badly affects the school. And so we seek to draw attention to the ministry responsible. I'm sure it's the Ministry of Roads and Highways and all other entities of state to go back to these projects and ensure that, right, interestingly, the contractors had left site. We could even say that they had abandoned the project. It's good for the ministries to go back to their contractors to make the necessary payments so that they go back to site and continue the projects and complete them for the benefit of the communities in which they are located.
So there's another question. It says that, how do you ensure the reports, I'm sure it's the 2024 semi-annual report or the PIAC statutory report, how do we ensure that these reports get to the ordinary Ghanaian? Are there plans to translate the reports into some major languages in Ghana?
The first step the committee takes is to engage citizens directly. And the PRMA provides that it should organize at least 2 public fora. We have begun, we have begun. We were also in the Ashanti region, we're in Edreso and the Sechere. We usually conduct the engagements in the local languages of the citizens who are located in the communities where we organize. So it helps them to appreciate the discussion in the reports. When we go to the districts, we also get to the television station, radio station in the community where we disseminate the content of the report for their benefit. So it's not only in the written report, but the committee also does what it calls the citizens or popular version of the report, which is the report reduced to more like an abridged version, less technical, less content, more pictures, more infographics to facilitate comprehension and absorption. The committee usually does for the annual reports, and the committee has plans and budget to do this so that citizens will be able to get the citizens version, the popular version, and be able to understand the report. So the committee will do that. Yes.
Maybe the final question before we move on to the recommendations. It says that going forward, are we going to see oil money being used for specific projects for the communities to see? Because the complaint is that we are not really benefiting from the use of petroleum revenues.
Yes, PIAC, as the one monitoring, cannot make promises with regards to how it will be utilized. It has made recommendations. And fortunately, this is one of the recommendations. We had the opportunity to interact with the Minister for Finance, then Honorable Ken Oforiatta, and he agreed, he together with some key officials of the Ministry of Finance, agreed with PIAC that there's need to label projects that have received petroleum revenue funding so that citizens can tell just at the first view that this project received this percentage of petroleum revenue funding, so that they know that petroleum revenue has been of this kind of benefit or that kind of benefit. So PIAC will continue to raise these pertinent issues for the attention of duty bearers so that they will respond to these recommendations for citizens to see how petroleum revenues are benefiting them.
Mr. Jordan, before we let you go, a lawyer, Jamina, before we let you go, can you share some few recommendations from your 2024 semi-annual report?
Yeah, so I think I've already touched on the recommendation relating to industrialization. The committee reiterates the recommendation relating to the amount outstanding with regards to surface rental. The Petroleum Revenue Management regulations provides that when surface rental are assessed by the Ghana Revenue Authority and given to the operators, they are required to make payments not later than 28th February of every year. This report was as at 30th June. So then it means that the companies that are in arrears failed to comply with the provisions of the regulations. So the committee recommends that GRA should double, triple, quadruple, whatever its steps according to law, and ensure that those entities comply with the provisions of the Petroleum Revenue Management regulations and pay the surface rentals that they are required to pay, so that the revenue will be available to government for the development of the country. Of particular note was the finding the committee made with regards to the 10 field. The committee found that crude oil production on the 10 field in particular was declining, but then the cost of production was going up. So the committee recommends that there should be an audit of the cost and the production, so that we'll be able to reverse the rise in cost of production and have the production go up, so that at least the operators will be able to operate and break even on the field. Yes. Should we talk about a few more of the recommendations?
Did you make any recommendation on industrialization? Because we realized that there was no allocation.
Yeah, so the committee recommends that if government has identified industrialization as a priority area, and rightly so, it should demonstrate the essence of prioritization by allocating petroleum revenue to the industrialization priority area. I mean, as we went around in our inspections, we saw a lot of watermelon produce, a lot of agricultural produce, which could be basis for the establishment of factories, so that these agricultural produce are not lost, but they would be processed for the benefit of Ghanaians and for the creation of jobs.
And that brings us to the end of this insightful conversation on the management and use of our petroleum revenues for the first half of 2024. My guest, lawyer Dramina, took us through petroleum production figures, the revenues that came in, how these revenues were used. And you, our lovely audience, also came in with your questions, which we responded to. This is all time would allow us for, but remember that as PIAC, we remain open to all your questions and your concerns, so you can continue to engage with us via any of our channels. Also, a full copy of the report can be downloaded from our website, www.piacghana.org. You can also send us a WhatsApp on 055-441-6544. Lawyer Dramina, thank you very much for making time to join us in this session. We hope to see you again.
Well, the pleasure is mine. We are always available to serve the public. Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you, our lovely audience, for staying engaged in this conversation. Until we come your way again with another edition, let's stay connected. Thank you and have a good afternoon. My name is Jessica Ichampo.